Hello, DNR staff. My name is Rachel Santa Olaya, and I'll be presenting to you today about the Conservation Program Explorer tool. This tool is housed by the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative, and I've been the lead on this project for the last several years. This is going to be your quarterly one-stop shop cafe webinar with the DNR. So I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative, how this tool came to be, what it does, how it works. I'm going to show you a demo of the tool, and then we're going to go into a survey to get your understanding of how this tool is working for you. So in your email with this recording, you should have received a link to the survey as well. And so once we get to that part of the webinar, you'll want to have that out, and you can either take the survey alone or you can follow some of the supplemental support in this webinar to help you fill that out. So just to begin, the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative is a volunteer-led partnership. We are not a nonprofit and we are not a governmental agency. I guess we're a non-governmental organization. And this is a derivative of a larger U.S. Fish and Wildlife regional landscape conservation collaborative that was a mandate back in 2012. And then the Pacific Northwest region had this subsection created, and so once that mandate kind of fizzled out, there were a little bit of funds left over, and we created a volunteer-led partnership. The Cascades of Coast Landscape Collaborative functions in Western Washington and Oregon. In a few slides, I'll show you what our map looks like. And this group of leaders had created a leadership team. So we had agency folks from across Washington and Oregon come together that are working in conservation to kind of put our brains together and see what we could do to support conservation in this region. And so as that leadership team formed, they had collectively decided there was a lot of private land in our geographic boundary and that it would be appropriate to host some breakfast meetings and workshops with private landowners in Southwest Washington and Northwest Oregon so that we could get a better understanding of what's going on for private landowners as well as those who work to serve private lands in conservation. And the results of that were across 3 or 4 workshops, which these are on our website. The reports to the workshops are on our website. And there were some threads through the responses of challenges that people face in conservation practices on their lands. And one of them was the awareness of incentive programs available to them. Many people reported not knowing or not being aware of the variety of programs available to them and what these programs were about, if they applied to them, if they were eligible for them. And so the idea of the Conservation Program Explorer tool came from that. And the concept of it is to create an easily accessible tool that folks can use to digest at a high level what each program is about and to be able to contact the program manager for the programs that they're interested in. And so you'll see in these pictures, hopefully a few familiar faces of those who are working in private lands conservation, woodlands, and this tool it's meant for private working lands, so it's for forestry and agriculture. And we are focusing on bringing in programs that offer financial benefits, free technical assistance, or marketing and recognition component, because through some research and reporting, those were the categories of incentive program types that were the most effective for engaging private lands in conservation practices. So on the left of this slide is the map of our geographic scope as a landscape collaborative, and you can see how much of this land is gray, so that's all the private land. And then again, private landowners requested the support tool, wanted to easily understand what they were eligible for and what was available to them. And then this tool is supporting that awareness of programs. So we just want to reiterate that agencies do a good job of promoting their programs and that this is a supplemental tool. We also decided this would be a good pathway forward because through, again, some reports that we read that we had read, there were a large amount of unused funds for conservation incentive programs. And the Conservation Program Explorer tool, or the CPE, it's created to help maximize the effectiveness of our current programs that are being offered. And lastly, the CLC is a neutral party since we're not an agency and we're not a nonprofit. We're kind of just we're not regulatory. We're just trying to help fill the gaps and find the needs that are outstanding within this process of conservation on private lands and conservation in general in uh, this geographic scope. And the CPE tool started out with the Olympic and Southwest regions of Washington. It has since expanded to cover the whole state of Washington and is now in Western Oregon. And even though it's in Western Oregon, it's still going beyond this boundary here. So the CPE tool is growing the CCLC. The Conservation Program Explorer has garnered a lot of support over the last few years since it launched in November of 2021, and I had presented this tool at the Integrated Small Forest Landowner Workshop in Chelan in 2022. So hopefully this is a little bit of a refresher for some of you and maybe an update. Since that time in 2021, since we launched, we have garnered a lot of support from these various groups, a lot of agencies, but also non-governmental agencies and groups that work to support private lands and conservation. The Conservation Program Explorer tool works like a matchmaker, so it's helping display the array of conservation incentive programs available to private landowners, but also to help them figure out quickly which programs they may be interested in and eligible for, and that contact information for that program. So it does help at that high level of awareness. And then after launching, we realized that this is also helpful to agencies and those that work to support private lands conservation because it can help train new staff. It can act as a directory to find contacts in other regions or to find programs and that might be beyond what your organization can support or offers, and it can be used as a comprehensive resource to private landowners. So offering the CPE tool can help them understand what their options are in addition to what you present. To clarify, the Conservation Program Explorer tool does not enroll private landowners in conservation incentive programs. We do not administer conservation incentive programs. We are very sensitive to making sure that we're being supplemental and not duplicating work. And we also don't provide a program preference or a bias. Sometimes when I go to outreach events, folks will maybe ask me like, oh, hey, I've heard about all of these incentive programs, but I'm still confused on where should I begin with it? And so what I would do in a situation like that is I would maybe figure out what county they're located in and then help them find who their local sort of like service representatives are. And that is the most amount of support that I give in terms of directing people to a program. I wanted to include this slide here to show you that over the last year, this has been sort of our hot spots of use, at least in Washington. I do have a little bit of Oregon included down here since we launched for Oregon last year. We're starting to see those bubbles get bigger as folks learn about the tool and begin to use it. And even though we have some, I think this is great to see some big circles for use here in Olympia and Seattle areas, but also these bubbles across the state are exciting to me as the tool lead because I'd like to think that that means that this tool is being used and becoming visible. So we have about 1,500 unique users on the tool that I can see on our analytics, and 94% of those users are new. Again, that to me is painting the picture that awareness of this tool and use of the tool to new folks is occurring, that people are learning about this tool and then they come to use it. 6% of our users are returning. It's hard for me currently to know if they are landowners or those working to support landowners. And the reason I'm telling you this is that it will have something to do with our survey a little later. And so This has been exciting to see this growth. We also can see that 20% of our users are attempting to access this tool from a mobile device. That could be an iPad, a tablet, or a smartphone. Really not sure which mobile device they're using, but right now it's best used on a desktop. And perhaps in the future, we will have the capacity to optimize for mobile and maybe an app. So those are going to be some questions I ask you in a minute. Now I want to demo the tool for you, and then we'll go into our survey. And before I forget, if you could please submit your survey by July 3rd, that should give you a week to do this, and we'll go through this in our webinar. You can also, if you would like to, you can skip that piece of the webinar and go ahead and go directly to the survey, but the webinar will have some supplemental explanation to help you get through that. Okay, so this is our homepage. If you'd like to type it into your browser so you can follow along with me, you may. It's ctoclc.org. We have some reports and some more background information about the Cascades to Coast Landscape Collaborative and the leadership team that you can come to the website and see for yourself. And if you just scroll down from the homepage, you can see the Conservation Program Explorer tool. It's the first thing that comes up. We have a little explanation here around who it's for and why we built this tool. You can email me at any time with any feedback or any other information if you have questions or if you think that a program is missing or if a program is outdated. That's one of the areas where you can quickly send me an email. We have this little infographic here around how the tool is used. There is a webinar here. This is from our Oregon launch that we did last year. It was just a little bit updated. We also have a YouTube channel where you can see our Washington launch from 2021. And then we have a brochure available for download here. So I'm going to click here to start and get into the tool. If you have folks in your network or any colleagues that are in Oregon, you can let them know about this Conservation Program Explorer tool, and then they have their own button here to connect to Oregon's incentive program database. So we had grouped these counties into regions. There wasn't really like a science to it. So just to let you know, this is stuff that could be changed, and the survey will go over some of the user interface aspects. So that's just what the website looks like. So this could be one of the things that you consider commenting on. So a user would come in and select their region. We'll just go with the Northwest region. And the layout of the tool is that there are programs listed. Oh, that's strange. The user can come into the tool and select what county they're located in. I'm going to go ahead and go with Skagit here. They can select what type of land they're looking for a program for. Some folks have both agricultural land and forest land, and so if they wanted to search for a program for either one, then they can leave this blank. For the purposes of presenting this tool to you all, I will select forest. And then again, we provide programs with three main benefit categories. So financial assistance, free technical assistance, and then we group together the marketing and recognition components. So I'm going to go ahead and pick on financial. And then this drop down here about water focused programs. We worked with a science communicator at US Fish and Wildlife, and they let us know that this was the best way to present riparian programs. So I know that as conservation professionals, sometimes it can go both ways and be confusing as well. So this is about riparian programs. So I'll just say yes, I have a riparian program. And if you noticed, the programs are the list of programs are auto updating as I select these search criteria. So if I select agriculture, oh, they're really the same amount of programs. It's interesting. There we go. Okay, so it wasn't a glitch. It was just coincidence. That's nice. Um, so you can see that this list auto updates. And then what it's showing is the name of the program, the provider, and the program benefit. So even though I had selected financial benefit, this program also provides a free technical assistance. So it's going to let you know here what program benefits this program provides, and it might be more than what you selected. And then there is a snippet, a 1 to 2 sentence description of the program. Again, that high level understanding of what the program is about. And then if folks are interested in learning more about it, they can click on more details. So for the purpose of uh, sharing this tool with you all, I wanted to find a DNR program. You can see that there's a lot of programs listed in here. Again, there isn't really a particular way of listing the programs in here, so there isn't like a particular way that maybe some programs are listed first versus last. So that might be something that you want to keep in mind as we go through the survey. Okay, so we have the Family Forest Fish Passage Program. So I'm going to say I want to know more details about this program. Now I can see, okay, this program is a state level program. I'm going to be working with the state if I choose to enroll in this program, rather than a local level would be something like the Conservation District, Regional Fisheries Enhancement Group. And if it was, for example, an RCS program or something administered by the Farm Services Agency, that would be a program that is listed as a national level program. Washington DNR is the provider. The benefits are both free technical assistance and financial assistance. It's for forest land use, and it does focus on riparian areas. In short, it helps people remove barriers for fish passage. And then we use the website description, but we also work with program managers to massage the descriptions of their programs that are listed on the CPE tool. And so we include that here. We also have the eligibility requirements. And then for those that offer a financial benefit, that benefit will be listed here. And then we can see that Chris Dwight is the contact for this program. His phone number and email is listed. As the local service, this goes to the organization's main page. So this is the software planner office where that program is housed. And then if you want to see the program itself, they can click link to full program details and they can learn about the program. And I wanted to show you how sometimes the contact information is displayed differently. Just because I know that RCO, actually, we don't really need to do that because here's an RCO program and this is a perfect example for this. So say I'm interested in this wildlife and recreation riparian protection program. Click on more details. So as we come into this program, we can see again that same information, benefits provided, the program is state level, who the provider of the program is. You can see the description of the program, eligibility requirements, the financial benefits, and then we come down to the contact information. And now this isn't a specific contact because a landowner applying for this program would contact a grant manager based on their location. So there are several instances of this in the CPE tool where we're trying to, again, make the match between the user and the program, but also their local contact for enrolling in that program. So it might happen several times in the CPE tool where you will see use the local service button to find your local service provider. And that service provider could be finding their local conservation district, it could be finding their local farm service agency representative or their local USDA rural development representative, it could be finding their DNR forester. So there is, thankfully, over the last 4 years and the way that things have been developing, there are more websites for people to use to find their local contact. So I've included that here in this local service button. So then Conservation Program Explorer users can come in here and say, oh, I was looking at that wildlife and recreation program, but we were looking at the habitat conservation projects one. Hypothetical user was, we had selected Skagit County. And now this user can see the 2 people that are available to support them in answering any questions they have about that program and getting them enrolled. So that's how we're connecting the users of the Conservation Program Explorer tool to not just programs, but the right program managers for them to talk to. Now I want to go back to the tool to show you some other aspects. So this will help inform our survey. So to the right of the drop down, so this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the tool. But for some conservation incentive programs to enroll in them, and in general, it's kind of good practice to have a land management plan. And so, or just to be in touch with the technical assistance providers. And that's what this tile here is about finding that support. So the supporting organizations page, might take a second to load, but this will be the way that folks can find their local level supporting organizations to help them with a land management plan or to help them decide which programs to enroll in and in what order, that kind of thing. So a hypothetical user, even though we had gone into the North Central uh, subregion, we had clicked this here, but once you get to the supporting organizations page, you can click on pretty much any county. I'm going to go ahead and go with Skagit, and then we were a forest landowner. And you can see that there's a list again that auto updates based on your search criteria. And folks can see the variety of groups available to support them. This list is going in alphabetical order based on the organization's name. And so we are kind of approaching this neutrally, I guess, alphabetically. We're not listing organizations in any particular way, so that might be something that you consider as we go through the survey feedback. But anyways, I'm wanting to share with you that this list of supporting organizations is important for folks because as we know, there are an increasing amount of landowners that are perhaps owning smaller acreages of land, which means that there is more learning to do and there's more technical assistance that's needed. And so we're wanting to connect them with the variety of groups that are available to support them. And I'm telling you this because it's over here in this area that might be easy to miss. And so once we get into the survey, I'll explain some ways that we can make some improvements to pull those supporting organizations out of this little tile and making it a bit more relevant. The last couple things I wanted to share with you on this sidebar here are that we do have another tool called the Interactive Mapper tool. This includes habitat connectivity data. So if you're working with a private landowner who owns a large swath of land, maybe a couple hundred acres, this might be a cool thing for them to look at just to understand the context in which their land is residing. And so it's kind of a large scale perspective on habitat connectivity data and ecosystem services. It's a neat tool. And then of course you can contact me here as well if there's anything that needs to be changed or you have any feedback. And then I have a different survey for users in general here so people can always offer their opinion and feedback there too. Okay. Now I would like to get into our usability survey for DNR staff. So you can read this on your own when you open it, but the purpose of this is to understand how useful this tool is to you in your work. And you are one group that I am surveying for the usability of this tool, and this information is going to help me to organize a user interface workshop in the future. Your feedback on this survey will help prioritize all of the feedback that I've received on this tool over the last 4 years. That's kind of the intention with this. You are not the only group that we are surveying, but this survey is special for you. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your name and your title, that would help me understand your role in conservation. I have entered these because I have to enter some of these required ones to move forward. And then having your contact for email would help us get in touch with you later if you'd like to be more involved, or if we can follow up with you if you say yes to that later on. That will be our way of getting in touch with you. And it also helps us for reporting to DNR that we did this and that you responded, and who responded. So it's good to know who's engaged in providing feedback, because this is a collaborative and DNR has been working with us on this tool, and it is meant for private landowners that you serve, but it is, as we look at improving the tool, we also want it to improve for your usability as well. So how long have you worked with DNR, and then how long have you worked with private lands conservation? Our next section is about previous experience with the tool. It's okay if you don't have previous experience with the tool. I did share this Conservation Program Explorer tool with folks at the Chelan training in 2022. It's okay if you haven't used it. I'm just curious. It helps us to have some baseline information to know how it's been performing, and your honesty is very appreciated throughout the survey. So what did you use whoops, what did you use the tool for? So I'm just kind of speculating what people might use this tool for. If something that you've used it for is not listed, please let me know in this other category. And again, it's okay if this is your first time using the tool, you can mark that there. And then regardless of how much exposure you've had to it, what do you think of the tool? And you can answer this as it pertains to your role. And then if the CPE has been useful to you in your work with private landowners, again, it's okay if you haven't used it, or if you don't find it useful to you. It would be helpful for us to know why, because we can't make improvements if we don't know what's wrong or what's not working. And then if you haven't used it, but maybe you planned on using it, or did you plan on using it, and then maybe you didn't get around to it or something, just letting us know kind of your perception of it would be helpful. Now, I would like for you to use the tool on your own in a practical scenario. So you can pause this webinar if you'd like and go ahead and use it. And maybe you might want to review these questions first so that you can go in and use the tool in a practical scenario and then come back and answer these questions. I tried to use an example and I left it very broad just because I don't do the work that you do and I don't really know all of the intricacies of your engagements with private landowners and supporting them with their concerns in stewarding their lands and trying to get involved in a variety of programs available to them. So I would like to know, for your practical scenario, what concern are you trying to address in this hypothetical scenario? So for example, I'm a DNR forester and I'm looking to help a private landowner by finding a program with financial support for habitat restoration. So I'm going to come into the CPE tool and find a program, or maybe a list of programs that offer financial support for habitat restoration. So that's just the example. If you could let me know what it is that you're using the tool for, that's what we'll go here. And then let me know, did the CPE help with resolving this need or the concern? Yes, no, and why or why not? I just marked an A just to get through these questions so I can move forward. And then do you think that the CPE tool can be improved to help with this resolution that you're looking for in supporting this private landowner in this hypothetical situation? And if so, in what ways? So how can we make this tool better to address the concerns of the private landowners that you work with? At least in that hypothetical situation. And then as we look forward to a user interface workshop, I'm looking at future improvements. So over the last 4 years since we've launched this tool and all of the outreach I've done, I've heard a lot of feedback over time and I've kept track of it. And so as we look towards future improvements, I could use some help from you all in prioritizing the topics below based on your expertise to know how we can go about making some meaningful changes to the tool. So there's three sections here. This first one is going to be based on your perception of the tool, how you think it could change to better serve your work and those you serve. And then if you could rank the following list in order of highest to lowest importance, not to say that it's not important, just we're trying to figure out which are the priorities. And so I had to go ahead and fill these out just to get through it, but I wanted to go through these topics here just to clarify some of them for you because there's a lot to share. That's why I wanted to do this together in the webinar. Okay, so first is the description of the CPE. So I had shared with you, I'm going to come back here and go to our homepage. So I had shared with you we have this description here of who it's for and why we built this tool. We also have the webinar and a brochure and a little infographic of how it works. So that's currently what we're displaying as far as what the CPE is. There have been some suggestions for a better description or maybe clarifying some things. So the suggestion of a frequently asked questions page has been brought up to me, clarifying what the role of the CPE is and how it is supplemental but does not duplicate or take over work from others such as yourselves, those who are administering the programs. And also in the description of the CPE of the Conservation Program Explorer, because this tool right now seems to be a little bit more beneficial for those who are new to managing land and enrolling in conservation incentive programs. There was the suggestion that the tool also offer a clear description of what a conservation incentive program is, that they're voluntary, and that something that describes the process of working with a conservation incentive program from start to finish. So if you think that is a priority, that is what this answer encompasses. Okay, this next topic is adding advanced search filters. So when we come into the tool, we're able to select our counties, what type of land, forest or ag, the type of program benefits, financial, technical assistance, marketing and recognition, and then if they have a riparian focused program. And I had also mentioned, well, I actually didn't mention the search bar yet, but we also have this keyword search bar. So let's say I'm looking for a carbon program. I can see that there are these three programs that have something related to carbon offsets in them or carbon credits. So I have some more things I could say about the way that the search results are displayed. I know it's not perfect. I'll just leave it at that. But just so you know, that's one of the functions right now of a way to do a more specific targeted search. You can play with that and see what you think about it and let me know how much of a priority you think that is. Some suggestions for more advanced search filters include a second set of drop downs that would be optional. And the reason it would be optional is to keep the simplicity of the tool. But those other drop downs would be something, or could be something like having a program level. So if this is a program level drop down, it would say national, state, or local level program. Or the drop down could be which agency or organization do you want to work with, and maybe one of the answers is like NGO and then DNR or conservation district or Department of Ecology or something like that. So those are some ideas for advanced search filters. Maybe you have some other ideas. And so just in general, those are some examples of what we mean by advanced search filters. And then right now, like I showed you, there is a focus on agricultural land and forest land. To me, when I first came into this, I was like, well, yeah, dairy and rangeland, isn't that agriculture? But turns out those are kind of different things. And so as this tool expands to be used on the east side of Washington and maybe in the future on the east side of Oregon and maybe even beyond these two states. You know, does it make sense to focus on building out this tool to support more of a dairyland or rangeland focus? And for those of you who work in some of those areas or serve landowners who have that land, take a look at the tool and let me know if you think that it can improve more in that way. And then our last category in this section is about adding a request for technical assistance form. So please take this wording with a grain of salt. I had a hard time putting this concept into words, but the reason that I'm including this is because a program provider and an agency staffer had let me know that they had a landowner who contacted them and several other program managers about their land concern, and it was around the same topic and issue. And they were looking at they had used the CPE tool, and they were looking at these different programs to help address this concern they had. And so this staffer had talked to a staffer at another agency, and they realized, oh, we're both helping this landowner with the same resource concern, and we're maybe duplicating our work efforts here. Whereas if they had gone to one of us, then we could have looped in the other necessary entities to help with this. And so the concept here is that having a general request for technical assistance form would be something that the user can use to say, hey, these are the programs I'm interested in. I want to reach out to these different program managers. Perhaps this form goes out to those program managers, and then they can decide how they want to respond to that landowner. But that way they have an awareness of the programs that that landowner is interested in. And this is to help navigate to the appropriate sort of response from these program providers. So wasn't really sure how to put that in a synthesized way. So thanks for hanging in there with me on these descriptions. The next two sections are a little bit easier to understand. Okay, next section. Based on your perception of the tool, what do you think could change to better serve your work and those that you serve? And these are a little bit more visionary categories. And this is all for the content of what's in the CPE tool. So we're aware that there are other tools out there that have been helpful, like Land Mapper, and I know it's not perfect, but that's just an example of one of the other tools that have been popular or advocated for. I know there's also some other management planning tools, and that there are some forums that people use. You might not know about this, but there's a Sustainable Ag Forum that is hosted by the Tilth Alliance, and that is a new thing that came about a few months ago. And so the idea here is that perhaps the CPE can grow, and maybe this is in the further future, but perhaps it can grow in the direction of incorporating these other tools that others have been working on, and so that they can function and flow together. And then our second category here is about outreach and education and creating an events calendar. So the idea behind this is that even though through those breakfast meetings and workshops that we had with private landowners and those who work to support them, even though we had learned that a common thread was a gap of awareness in the incentive programs available to them, we'd also heard, and I continue to hear through my own outreach, that landowners appreciate educational opportunities. They want to not just be told what to do, but they want to understand why, and they want to make their own decisions, and they appreciate being empowered through education, and that occurs through outreach. And so I also learned that folks who are offering education and outreach are oftentimes looking for what other opportunities there are, and they're looking to list their education and outreach events. So in the name of creating a one-stop shop tool for the CPE that it was meant to be, perhaps this can also support being a one-stop shop in that way. And on that note, because I know that DNR has their own one-stop shop, your Find Your Forester is a part of that one-stop shop. And so your Find Your Forester is within this one-stop shop. So we kind of have like this inception of one-stop shops. So DNR's one-stop shop is all DNR focused. programs and support. And the Conservation Program Explorer as a one-stop shop tool is a larger, comprehensive one-stop shop. So just to clarify the kind of delineations here. Okay, our next topic here is a customer service style chatbot to help answer and navigate any questions that landowners might have. So for example, let's say they go and they look at one of these programs and they're like, I'm just really not sure if I'm eligible. And they can type in to the chatbot, well, this is my land and this is my situation. Am I eligible for this program? So this is something I think we would navigate very carefully to remain neutral and to honor and respect the relationships between service providers and landowners, because I know that your relationship is built on some of these types of interactions. And I also know that having some added support can help landowners reach out to a program provider and to get help. So that's something that if we did go ahead with this, we would definitely want to workshop it together and make sure that it's functioning in a way that works for everyone. And then our last category here is something that came about a while back, the idea of having a favorites list. So for a user of the Conservation Program Explorer, let's say they come in and they say, I really like these 5 programs. And I want to share these programs with my sister who lives in Utah. And so we make our land management decisions on our family property together. I want her to know about these programs that I'm interested in, or maybe I'm working with a DNR forester and I want them to know about these other programs I'm looking at. So this would be a way for that CPE user to make a list and have their favorites that they can then share with someone else. Okay, our last section here. Do you have one more part to the survey? But this is our last section of the rankings. And this is based on the back end programming. So this is stuff that you won't see as a user of the CPE tool. And the reason I'm asking you this is because your feedback, I think, is important. So first, setting up Google Analytics. We are connected to Google. We see website analytics on Wix. Our website is hosted on Wix, and I can only see so much with our current analytics, but being set up to Google Analytics would help me give reporting to you or your program manager about how CPE users are interacting with your program on our tool. And I can be able to then see how many times your program is clicked, how many times people go to your full program. So I can see, okay, they came in here and they looked at the forest carbon offset program, how many times that button got clicked. And then I can also see how many times folks came down here to look at the full program details. So that's kind of what that is meant to provide you all. And it also helps us in understanding how people are engaging with the tool. It's one of the ways. And then our second category here, a different platform. So I have heard from others that Wix is maybe not the best website for this type of tool. I've also heard that it's a great website for it. Would it be useful to you to have this resource available on even if it's not a different website host, maybe it's on an app? My understanding is that some folks who work in the field with private landowners are walking their property, and that they have, in addition to their folder of outreach materials that are printed, they also have maybe iPads or tablets, and they can look at things together on a screen. And I know that some of these parcels that you're on are in areas that maybe don't have uh, cell service or Wi-Fi service. So having an app that has this content downloaded might be helpful as you're in the field with a landowner you're trying to serve, and you can look at the programs that way. So that's the concept behind this answer here. And then my apologies for this being so long and narrow, but this was the best survey format that we had with the resources that we have. But tracking cookies is the category here. And so if you have shopped online, you've probably hopefully opted out of the cookies. There are some that you generally cannot opt out of. But if we were to turn on tracking cookies, which they are not turned on right now, we would be transparent about the way that they're used, stored, and the security of them. And then we would definitely have an opt-out option. We want to make this neutral and friendly to others, but the importance of having these tracking cookies turned on is that it allows us to see the user behavior a bit more. So like I was mentioning earlier with the Google Analytics, being able to see and have some statistics on what programs are being clicked. Maybe there's certain regions of the tool that are being clicked more than others, and we can see just sort of that user behavior. It also helps us learn where users drop out of the tool. So I don't really know right now if they're making contact with program providers, or if they're just looking at programs and then closing out of the window. So that would help us learn about the behavior, and that would help us make improvements, because ultimately, while this is an informational tool, we want people to enroll in your programs. And so if there's a way for us to set folks up for that level of success, that's what we're looking to have this tool do, is get people involved in conservation incentive programs and get them through the program. Another thing that tracking cookies would help is something called remarketing. And so again, using the shopping experience, I'm just assuming that you all have shopped online in some capacity. And so maybe me more than you, but when you return to a website, oftentimes they'll have these sort of areas where there are ads where they will show you a product that you've looked at already. And what they're doing without the psychology behind it is that they're trying to sell you that product. So the way that this would work on our tool here, the CPE, is that let's say a user returns to the website and they're in this section again where they're wanting to search for a program. Maybe it's over here on this sidebar. Like, if you go to a website, let's say even if you're looking up a recipe, there's all these really annoying ads. And so we would not be as annoying, but our quote unquote ad might be promoting the program that that user had looked at the last time they came to the CPE tool. Or let's say they select their county. Well, now we know what county they're looking in, and we could say, okay, here's the supporting organizations. Here's your local conservation district personnel. Oh, you're working with forest land? Here's your local DNR forester. And we're gonna like advertise that you are the support person for the programs that they're seeing here, that offer free technical assistance. So that's the way that this would be used if we had that improvement and turned on. And our last category here is something called a program manager dashboard. So this would be where those who are have program listings in the CPE tool would have their own login to be able to go in and make updates to their program information. So for DNR, it might look like, and I'm just going to use for an example, maybe it's Holly who has her own dashboard where she can come in and make changes to the programs we have listed for DNR. And so she would then talk with you all internally and then come to the CPE and make changes. And maybe that's, hey, Chris Dwight left us and we have a new contact for triple F2P. Or if it's a conservation district, or let's just say all these funding changes, the programs are changing now, our budgets have changed, or we just went through legislative session and our capacity is changing and our programs thus are, maybe the descriptions of them are going to change. Instead of us waiting to get some funding to come in and do this change, which I will say we launched in 2021, continued to build out for the rest of the state in 2022, and now in 2025, kind of started at the end of 2024, we started to make some updates to the program database. And the importance of this is that this tool is only really useful as it is relevant. And so keeping that program information updated is crucial to the viability of this tool. And we're thinking that if program managers had a dashboard, then they could come in and make their changes. And I would be more of a support for them in prompting that it's time, and also supporting any difficulties in making those changes. So those are the categories here for this last section of back-end programming and things that the user doesn't see but does affect their user experience. Okay, and lastly, thank you for hanging in there. This section is about the CPE as it is relevant to you. As we again look forward to a user interface workshop, if you're available for a 30-minute interview to share your experience of the CPE tool and your perspective, your opinions, that would be helpful to us. It's okay if you're not available. This isn't something that we would do now, it's something we would do in the future, and I'm hoping that we can get some form of compensation, some gift cards donated or something for people's time with us. So just trying to pique your interest there. And what this would look like is something called a think aloud. So we would go to the website, and I would maybe have you recording your screen, and you would just talk out loud about what you think, like, oh, who's this for? Landowners, producers, and organizations. Oh, well, what organizations? And you would just kind of like share your thoughts. And again, it might feel a little awkward at first, but for those of you who aren't fazed by that, um, you might be a great participant for this. um, our last few questions here. If any private landowners have contacted you about an incentive program because of the CPE tool, it's okay if you're not sure, but if you have, please let me know. And then if you feel confident sharing the CPE as a resource with private landowners, yes or no, and then what about it makes you feel confident to share it or not. And if there are any other unrelated factors that aren't necessarily about the CPE that make you feel confident or not to share the CPE tool, that would be helpful to us, for us to know as well, because it helps us with the planning and is kind of the conversation and the narrative around the Conservation Program Explorer tool, because it's meant to be supplemental. So if there's some reason that it is maybe not, it would be nice to know. Okay, our last piece here, I just want to say thank you for your time, thank you for your participation, and when we have this user interface workshop, if you would like to be invited to participate, let me know. Thank you for your time. My name is Rachel Santaolalla, and I'm the lead of the Conservation Program Explorer tool. Our email did change last year, so for those of you who have been in the know of this, you can email me at the new email address. My phone number is the same. Feel free to call me with any questions that you might have of the survey or any other follow-up. Feel free to email me if you'd like any other clarification about the CCLC, the CPE tool. And then please submit your survey by Thursday, July 3rd. It means a lot to us, and DNR is counting on you all to help provide some feedback, so that remember that we're collaborators on this tool, and your feedback helps us immensely in making it a valuable, viable resource for you all and those that you serve. I believe that is all, so thank you very much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.